Long before Oklahoma's statehood, the Osage Nation thrived across a vast territory encompassing parts of present-day Kansas and Oklahoma. They were a people deeply connected to their ancestral lands, with a rich cultural heritage. However, the relentless westward expansion of the United States pushed them onto what was then deemed undesirable, rocky terrain in northeastern Oklahoma. This undesirable land, it turned out, sat atop an ocean of vast oil reserves, a geological anomaly so significant it seemed almost comical. Crucially, the 1906 Osage Allotment Act preserved the Osage Nation's communal mineral rights. While the surface land was divided among individual tribal members, the underground riches remained collectively owned. This communal ownership created a system of headrights, where each enrolled Osage tribal member received a share in the immense oil income. By the 1920s, the oil boom was in full swing, gushing forth so much wealth that the Osage became, per capita, the wealthiest people in the entire world. However, immense wealth often attracts immense attention, and not always the good kind. The U.S. government implemented a controversial guardianship system. This meant that if an Osage individual was deemed incompetent to manage their own wealth, a guardian, often a non-Osage local, was appointed. Incompetent was a very flexible term, often applied regardless of actual ability, and became a conduit for exploitation. This unique legal framework, coupled with the sudden boom, transformed the Osage lands into a magnet for opportunists, turning sleepy towns into bustling and sometimes dangerous boom towns. The 1920s in the Osage Nation weren't just about oil and fortune. They were also shrouded in chilling mystery. As early as 1918, whispers of unexplained deaths began to circulate, escalating into a terrifying crescendo in the early 1920s. Initially, these deaths were conveniently dismissed as accidents or natural causes, even when circumstances raised serious questions. But the whispers grew louder with the tragic saga of the Burkhart family. First, Molly's sister Anna Brown disappeared, her body later found with a single bullet wound to the head. Then, Molly's mother, Lizzie Q. Kyle, succumbed to a suspicious wasting illness. Not long after, her sister Rita Smith, her husband Bill Smith, and their servant were all killed when their house was bombed. To cap off this horror, Molly's brother, Henry Roan, was found dead with a bullet wound. These were clearly not isolated incidents. This was a coordinated campaign of violence. A grim pattern of deaths began to emerge. These murders disproportionately targeted full-blood Osage individuals, particularly those who held valuable headrights. The timing was often uncanny. Deaths would occur in rapid succession within families, effectively consolidating headrights into fewer and fewer hands. Local authorities' investigations were alarmingly ineffective, plagued by corruption, incompetence, and outright collusion among local law enforcement and powerful white citizens. The climate became one of utter fear and distrust within the Osage community, a feeling that no one was safe and no one was truly looking out for them. What initially seemed like isolated incidents soon revealed itself to be something far more sinister. A calculated, organized conspiracy. This was a methodical campaign with a clear and chilling motive: to steal the oil wealth of the Osage by systematically eliminating headright holders. At the center of this web of deceit was William K. Hale. On the surface, Hale was a respected figure, a prominent cattleman, and even a friend to many in the Osage community. His role was truly insidious. He presented himself as a benefactor while secretly orchestrating a reign of terror. One of Hale's key strategies was control through marriage. He often arranged marriages between his relatives, such as his nephew, Ernest Burkhart, and wealthy Osage women like Molly Kyle. This gave him a direct pipeline to their family's fortunes, creating a chilling web of complicity and fear. The methods of elimination were as varied as they were gruesome. Untraceable poisons, point-blank shootings, and sophisticated bombings that left behind shattered lives. What's even more disturbing is the breadth of complicity. Doctors, lawyers, and even law enforcement officials were implicated, either actively participating or turning a blind eye, their silence bought or coerced. The psychological impact on the Osage was immense. They were living under a constant threat, never knowing who to trust. With local authorities seemingly either unwilling or unable to act, the Osage Nation's appeals for federal intervention grew more desperate. Frustration mounted, and Chief Fred Lookout, along with other tribal leaders, bravely took their pleas all the way to Washington, D.C. The sheer scale and baffling nature of the crimes eventually began to draw national attention, proving too big and too dark to be swept under the rug. Enter J. Edgar Hoover, the newly appointed director of the Bureau of Investigation, which would later become the FBI. Hoover saw the Osage murder case as a golden opportunity to legitimize his fledgling agency, to prove it was more than just a group of G-men chasing bootleggers. This was a chance to make a real mark. He assigned Tom White, a seasoned lawman with a reputation for integrity and tenacity, to lead the investigation. White assembled a small, hand-picked team of undercover agents, including a number of former Texas Rangers, men who knew how to dig up trouble in challenging environments. But their task was far from easy. They faced immense challenges: the deep-seated corruption permeating the local system, the insular nature of the community where outsiders were viewed with suspicion, and the monumental difficulty of gaining trust from the traumatized Osage. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, where the haystack was also trying to kill you. The agents embarked on an elaborate undercover operation. They posed as cattle buyers, insurance salesmen, even oil prospectors, all designed to blend in and gather intelligence without revealing their true identities. They had to be meticulous, slowly and patiently piecing together fragmented testimonies, sifting through financial records and unearthing hidden connections. In a truly novel approach for the time, the investigation even involved exhuming bodies for forensic analysis, a pioneering step in what would become modern criminal investigation. It was a slow, arduous, and incredibly dangerous undertaking, but they were determined to bring the truth to light. The painstaking work of Tom White and his team finally began to yield crucial key breakthroughs. A pivotal moment arrived with the testimony of a crucial informant, Kelsey Morrison, who provided direct testimony linking William Hale to the murders. This was the kind of break that makes investigators know they are on the right path. Adding to the growing mountain of evidence was meticulous forensic analysis, particularly of explosive residue recovered from the Rita Smith bombing. Each piece of the puzzle, painstakingly analyzed, began to paint a clearer picture of the horrifying plot. The investigation laid bare the intricate web Hale had spun, revealing how he used his nephew, Ernest Burkhart, and other associates to carry out the killings, often dangling the promise of future wealth as incentive. The role of other conspirators, including a local doctor who shamelessly poisoned victims and then falsified their death certificates, further illustrated the depravity of the scheme. These were not just bad apples, this was a whole rotten bushel. Eventually the net tightened. William Hale, Ernest Burkhart, John Ramsey, identified as a triggerman, and others were finally arrested and indicted. The significance of the case cannot be overstated. It marked one of the first major homicide investigations for the fledgling Bureau of Investigation, a true test of its capabilities that transformed it into a serious law enforcement agency. The legal strategy was complex, a challenge to prove a grand conspiracy when direct evidence for each individual murder was scarce. But as the investigation unfolded and the trials began, the public's awareness of the rampant corruption and horrific violence plaguing the Osage grew, demanding justice for the victims. The trials that followed were highly publicized, drawing national attention to the horrific injustices suffered by the Osage Nation. They were fraught with challenges, with some ending in hung juries, a clear indication of the lingering influence and intimidation exerted by Hale's associates. But persistence paid off. Eventually, William Hale, Ernest Burkhart, and John Ramsey were all found guilty and sentenced to prison. The outcomes for other minor conspirators varied, with some receiving lighter sentences or, frustratingly, being acquitted. It wasn't a clean sweep, but it was a significant victory against a deeply entrenched criminal enterprise. The Osage murder case left an indelible mark on American legal history. It significantly shaped the role of federal law enforcement in local crimes, establishing a precedent for federal intervention when local authorities were compromised or overwhelmed. It also glaringly highlighted the urgent need for greater protection of indigenous rights, particularly drawing attention to the exploitative guardianship system that had left the Osage so vulnerable. Despite the immense tragedy and the profound betrayal, the Osage Nation's resilience shone through. They persevered, maintaining their culture, their traditions, and continuing their fight for self-determination. To this day, the Osage Nation continues to control its mineral rights and manage its wealth, a testament to their strength and sovereignty. The historical lessons learned from the Reign of Terror are stark and enduring. A powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked greed, the insidious nature of racial prejudice, and the devastating consequences of the abuse of power. It's a story that underscores the vital importance of seeking truth and justice, not just for the victims of the past, but for all who have suffered historical wrongs. The Osage murders serve as a grim, cautionary tale, but also as an inspiring testament to the resilience of a people who, against unimaginable odds, fought for their lives and their legacy. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.
It's London Lee.